Day before yesterday, just before I'm going into my morning meditation, Brother says to me, as he has many, many times in the past, but it seems like about every 6 months, what are you meditating about today? What are you carrying into this meditation today? And that's one of the ways that he usually likes to open the conversation up. What he has always tried to help me do is to stay focused on why I'm doing what I'm doing. So what I'm asking you today, suggesting for you today, is why are you studying A Course in Miracles? What do you expect to get out of it? What do you expect it to do for you? See, the reason this is so important, we only see what we live for. There can be a million things going on in our consciousness, a million of God's plans, so to speak, unfolding in our mind, and we don't see them if we're not tuned in. I know that may sound a little strange, but that is the way the ego perception works. It has closed down around its own views, its own ideas and beliefs, and cut off, shut out anything else that may be pertinent until we purposefully, consciously open our mind to receive it. So take a minute, just now, because we've got some beautiful, revealing passages coming up for our perusal today. And I think it would be just really, really nice if you can share them with us if you like, or not, as you please. But just take a couple of minutes and ask yourself what it is. Why are you here today? What is it about the Course? What is it about anything you're pursuing in your spiritual life? Where are you with that? And what do you expect to get from it? And then please, while you're thinking about it, if someone comes up with something and you'd like to share it, please do. Because as you know, what's going on for you is going on for me and everybody else here too.
I don't know how many years ago it was, but I asked in prayer to be enlightened. And it seems to have brought me this way. Something is sending me this way. But just taking a minute there and asking myself that question, the answer came real quick. I want to go home.
Where is it, brother? Where is home?
Back to God.
Where's God?
Everywhere.
Right here.
I want to wake up.
Right here.
That's right.
How will you wake up, my friend?
Let go of the dream. I guess I haven't let go of it yet, but I'm working on it.
Few of us have, Brian. Every desire to know is an attack on the reality of the fact that you already do know. So how do we compensate for that? We obviously can't simply say, well, then there's no point in my searching because I feel the need to search. So how would I do that? How would I compromise those two awarenesses, those two feelings? Brother says to us, in effect, fake it till you make it. What he says is, see the sinlessness in your brother. How many of us sitting here are really capable of seeing the sinlessness in a brother? Well, maybe none of us and all of us at the same time. Because if I just say to myself, I choose to see your sinlessness, probably I'm not going to see it. But if I do, as Tom just suggested, and say to my God self, show me my brother's sinlessness. And I have taught myself to step back and to anticipate that I will get what I have asked for. I will. I will see it. And I may see it in a way that I have never anticipated or expected. But it's always there, and it's always available. And the only hindrance is my rejection of it, my blocking it.
You asked me where God was. God is within us all. If I can remember that, it might be a bit easier to see my brother's sinlessness.
It might.
I was just thinking, as you were speaking, Tom, that I have struggled with that because I keep thinking that it's what I see as the present behavior that I'm asked to interpret as his sinlessness. And it just clicked with me that no, the sinlessness of all of us is not the physical behavior, beliefs, actions, whatever that we're carrying out now. It's a totally different vision of who we are.
Yeah.
That's a really helpful insight for me.
The truth of us is not going to be found in the story we're telling. If you had awakened this morning and said, remind me throughout the day, God, that what I want most is to learn how to love. So remind me when those opportunities come along. Wow. How many fewer of those opportunities would we miss? Most of the time, when those opportunities show up, we say, oh my God, here comes another problem. Is it a problem, or is it what we've asked for?
Every day I wake up, and how do I love myself right now is what I'm dealing with. No problems, nothing. I just...
Let me make a suggestion, honey. Instead of saying, how can I love myself, just say, how can I love? Don't exclude anyone.
Well, I'm not, yeah.
But
Okay.
you see, you did.
I did.
When you said myself,
Yeah.
you narrowed that down.
At this particular instant.
There is no instant, honey, when you love anyone that you're not loving yourself. That's why I'm suggesting that. But there are many, many instances when I think I'm loving myself and I'm shutting out the rest of the world.
So how can we be part of that one?
How can we be part of the one?
Yeah.
How can you be part of it?
Yeah, my question is, how can you not be a part of the one?
If I was just part of the one, I wouldn't be the one.
Would you
Well,
say?
that's worth pondering though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was just at the end of last week, we were having a little fun with the idea of what cause and effect is. I guess you guys weren't back yet. But we were talking about cause and effect. And within our ego's perception, there is distinctly a difference between cause and effect. In truth, cause is effect, and effect is cause, and cause is effect. That's the distinction, or lack of distinction, between being a part of and being the whole. They are really the same. Brother tells us frequently in the Course that God is incomplete without us. Do you think that's really true? It's not really true. It's not really true simply because there is no way for the whole to be divided or for God to be lacking. But you see, he's speaking to us in terms that we can relate to about the things that we, within our own perception, the things that we have to overcome.
So I am the one. The problem is to see myself as the one instead of a separate body.
When you know yourself as the one, you are the one. At this particular moment, when we have lost sight of that, we can try to be part of the one. We can recognize we are part of the one. That's the bridge in getting over that chasm between truth and illusion. I don't know about you, but I can't relate to being the one. That's a lovely phrase, but I can't relate to it. But somehow I can relate to being part of the one.
Isn't it just the way I experience that, because I struggle with that, once you are the one, it's just a merge and you are that. So there's not...
It's not a question.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. That's how we are the one. It's just
Yes.
It's just the mind.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes. On this side of the bridge, it looks this way, and on this side of the bridge, it's what bridge?
right.
What problem?
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's no difference between being part of the one and the one.
No,
They're exactly the same.
they're exactly the same. What's the difference between you and God?
There is no difference.
One of the easiest ways for us to get lost in this business of oneness is through the idea of differences. Because differences are so subtle in our thinking and so much a part of our perception that we tend to discount something that we cannot see a difference between it and who we are. So it's very helpful to just teach yourself that when something comes up, something about one of the candidates, and you say, ask yourself the difference that you're really seeing between, let's say, what his position is and what your position is. What is that difference? Now, if it shows up, as it must, as something in your perception, then what do you do with it?
Love it.
You say to yourself, this thing that I am seeing as a difference exists in my story. It exists in his story. It exists in my story, and his story, and your story. But you know what? It's not true. In other words, it's a difference without a cause. And that's the material we're going to study today. It's a difference without a cause.
If I react in any way to it, I'm acknowledging the story.
The reality of the story.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying not to do. You know, I was going to share this earlier, and I forgot, but I was listening to one of these the other day where you suggested a practice. That in a meditation, we say, there is no world, I have no body, and there is no cosmos. Now, I never did that when you suggested it, but I have been doing it the last couple of days, and it does bring a different feeling about it. It's a feeling of strength that comes to me.
That's beautiful, Brian. I would suggest to you that feeling of strength comes from ridding your mind of a lot of illusion. It's an awareness that you're getting right down to the bone of the truth. What if we saw no differences between anyone and us? Now you know you can't do that by looking at the stories, because the stories are designed to illustrate differences. So it's not going to be there. So what would we have to do to see without differences?
See beyond the story.
And how would we do that?
Remember, in that moment, choose.
You say to the God self, show me what is without judgment. And that's going to get you out of the story immediately. Show me what is without judgment. There is nothing but judgment in the story we tell. But in the vision of God, there is no judgment. There is nothing to judge. See, what we have done is to take this guilt for our imagined sin, the original sin, so to speak, and we have projected it outside of us so that we didn't have to bear the burden alone, and we can make someone else a little bit worse than what we are. So all of a sudden, when we start saying, well, we're all the same, inwardly, you may never even connect to this, but inwardly, that consciousness is going, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't sign up for this. Because now suddenly you've lost all of those reasons to keep that person, that brother, outside. Anyone else?
So what are we saying to ourselves?
It's simply to ask. To say, show me how I am the same as my brother. Anything that shows me I'm the same as you is going to make me love you. Not make me love you, but make me realize that I do love you. When you begin to have a meditation, what it is that you expect. What is it that you really want? What does awakening mean to you? There's a million different ways that we can talk about it, but what we're saying is remind me, God. Remind me of what it is that I've been working for all of this time. Remind me what all of my studying is about. Because if we become more focused, become more tuned in, where we know we want to be, we can make that change. Our mind is malleable enough that it will accommodate us. And so as long as there's a need for something to seem to upset us, then that's where we go with it. I am always amazed at myself when I say to my God self, show me how to love this one as I love God. Amazing things happen. It cuts through so much of my bull. What are you really trying to get past, Sam?
False vision.
What might it have to do with how you have judged yourself for having false vision? Let's be real clear. There is no place anywhere in creation that the love of God exists any more purely than it does in you. That's the truth, Sam. When you light there, when you begin there, as a premise, there is no place where the love of God exists more brightly than in me at this moment, right now. What would your next question be? My friend, when that hits you, you won't have a question. The questions will all be done.
Wow.
Brother once told me, the only thing that you really have to overcome is the belief that there is something to overcome. What keeps us from accepting that? It's a thought. What I just said is a thought. What keeps us from accepting it?
Unbelief.
It's more basic than that even, honey.
Belief that there's something wrong.
There is something within me that does not want to accept it. So how do we tell ourselves, how do we teach ourselves that it is true? It's so simple, and it's covered every page in this book.
Forgiveness.
See your brother sinless. Just be willing to look at someone and say, I see you like I see God. You might not even believe it. You probably don't believe it. But if you say it often enough, if you become determined to believe it, you will. And I can say that to you with all the assurance in the world simply because it is true.
It's correcting a misperception, which is forgiveness, and that requires communication with the Holy Spirit.
Yes, that is the definition of forgiveness. That's true, Roger. That is the very definition of forgiveness.
We just can't get away from the fact we have to communicate.
I got a question. Because I've been here with myself. I struggle with I love God. I feel I have a lot of blocks to loving God. But isn't the blocks that I have in loving God the same blocks I have in loving myself? It's the same.
It's more than the same. It's the only block.
It's the only block.
It is loving yourself.
Right.
You don't have a block to loving God because you don't know God right now. You've forgotten God.
Right. So when that person's in front of me, I want to ask that I see him, to love him as I love God. I'm already like, well, I don't love God.
Okay, but follow that, honey. Follow it then. Let it lead you to where your real block is. So when that thought comes up and says, I really don't know if I can love God, or wait a minute, what is that really about? Well, logic would tell me that I've pretty much forgotten God, so what I'm really saying is I don't know how to love myself.
Yes, I know that to be true.
Okay. Well then teach me. How do I love myself? And you might hear something like, love your brother. Well, but if I can't love myself, how can I love my brother? You see, now you can begin to unravel that whole...
I see it all. It's all one. It's any block I have to loving myself, you, God. It's all illusion. I can label it anything I want to label it.
But what we're doing is consciously teaching ourselves that consciously we can learn whatever it is we choose to learn. Who is responsible for our unlearning, for our forgetting? We are, obviously. So, can't we learn as easily as we unlearn? Yeah, we can. If we will allow ourselves to be led.
We have to unlearn again. Unlearn what we learned.
You will feel good about loving someone, and ultimately you will not feel good about judging them.
Yeah.
So if you will just pay attention to that,
Yeah.
you will be more encouraged into the loving part.
I see that, but does that involve my perception, which is a projection of, should I be going through all of that? Or should I,
I believe you should.
Right?
If you're feeling called to take each of those steps, that's not an accident. When we learn that we feel better by loving than we do by judging, we're more encouraged to the one than the other.
I'm glad you said that. That is really big. That had not occurred to me.
What hadn't occurred to you, Brian?
To notice the difference between when I'm loving someone and when I'm judging someone.
One of my other favorite passages from the Course is from Lesson 99. there's just two short sentences or two long sentences, I guess. What joins the separate mind and thoughts with mind and thought, capital M, capital T, which are forever one? What plan could hold the truth inviolate, yet recognize the need illusions bring, and offers means by which they are undone without attack and with no touch of pain? What but a thought of God could be this plan by which the never done is overlooked and sins forgotten which were never real? It is important not to judge ourselves for judging. So what the Course tries to teach us is that we can change the meaning and the purpose by going to the Holy Spirit, to the God Self, and say, show me how to do this. Show me how to make this judgment. We don't want to say that, but I mean, that's literally what we're saying. Show me how to make this judgment without really judging. Well, what we mean when we say without judging is without condemning. That I can make a judgment by saying, you know, I really like to love this person. That's a judgment. But it's a judgment that leads me toward loving. I had a thing in my meditation about, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 days ago, where I had been asking, or commiserating with myself, I guess, more than anything, about why it seemed so doggone hard to wake up. Why was it taking me so long? What the heck was going on? So anyway, I asked. I said, what is really going on here? And Brother said, it's not so much you should be impatient with yourself for not getting it quick enough, but to focus more clearly on why you think there's something real that happened that you need to change. And that really stopped me. Why do I have this urgent feeling that there's something I have to do? How much easier could it possibly be if I were to just step back and say, whoops, I thought that was real again. But if it's not, my dear friends, if this whole thing is a charade, then how are we ever going to convince ourselves of it while we live by the rules of the world?
Just enjoy this illusion for what it's worth. You know?
Denny, I find it easier because there seems always to be a justification that's required to get from this world isn't real to, hey, I really like this. So you're in conflict when you're there. So the thing I find easiest to help me over that hump is to put both things in the perspective of loving. If I feel really loving while I'm watching that sunset, if I can allow a feeling or a picture to come into my mind of a universe of brothers who are one with me, who may be doing or experiencing anything, but no, who are really one with me. That feeling of loving supports the beauty and sets me in a frame of mind where I can better appreciate that there is something more to come.
Is it as if you are asking or just being open to everyone who is one with you saying, okay, feel this with me?
It is, Tom. I know this, we've talked about similar things like this before, but this is simply a matter of practice. It begins with the awareness that what you have ever wanted for yourself, you must want for everyone. Otherwise, there's no meaning to it. Because everyone is a part of you. And when you say for me, you have to incorporate the me into what literally is everyone. So by doing that over a period of whatever time it takes, you just build an expectation in your mind of what it means when you say to see everyone as loving. It's, I don't know, it's just as I say, it's a habit of thinking that we have to cultivate. It's why brother on every other page or every other paragraph and throughout the course tells us to see your brother as yourself.
It's interesting, I've been listening to Robert Holden's tape, the one that we did here a couple of weeks ago. And he talked about having sciatica.
I can't remember if Robert said this or not, but when he was going through that, I got a call from him and he said, I can't sit down, I can't lay down, I can't, my back, my legs. And I've never read Louise Hay's book, incidentally. But I said, what is it that you're conflicted about? And he said, well, I'm not conflicted about anything. I'm just writing this book. And I said, no, what are you conflicted about in writing the book? Well, I don't remember. I said, what's the title of the book? He told me. And I said, can you accept that? Or do you accept that? Well, there it was.
That's what I thought too in listening to him. He was having trouble accepting that life loves him. He's writing the book called Life Loves You, and he's having trouble taking it in.
So I recall when he finished the book, the sciatica was...
Why is that true? That when you release yourself or one other person, doesn't matter which, that you release the entire consciousness? Why is that true? Why must that be true?
Because we're all connected.
Because the world is nothing more than the way we see it. There's nothing out there except what we see in here. So when you change the way you see it, means literally, you've changed the source of everything that can be seen. And don't for a moment believe that you, as the way you see yourself now, have the ability to change the purpose. No, please. The only thing that will happen is that it will be your story, phase 2. You've got to go to the God self and say, how should I see this? What is there really here for me to see, and how should I see that?
So that's where you almost have to live in that space of the holy instant.
What is the holy instant?
Just feeling that love, that no matter,
Yeah.
that just always seeing it through the Holy Spirit.
It sees nothing else except the love. That makes it holy. So you can understand how, if you saw nothing else as love, or as lovable and loving, why that would change everything. I had an experience a few days ago where I was asking, brother, how it seems so utterly difficult. How do I see the holiness in myself? How do I do it? Because I was trying. There was a place in one of the lessons where he said, if you see, once you accept the holiness of yourself, all fear is gone. I said, hey, I'd like to be there. So I focused and meditated and opened myself for the Holy Spirit to show me my holiness. And nothing really happened. And so I asked why. And he said, you recall that dream you had last night? Yeah. Was the character in that dream really you? No. He said, do you think you're dreaming now? Yes. Is the character you see now in this dream really you? And it finally got it. The point is, I was seeing trying to see my holiness from the standpoint of the character that I believe there's something wrong with. The character in my story. A good rule to remember is simply, if you want to find the truth in your thinking processes, you've got to start with a truthful premise. So when you say to yourself, what do I need to do to heal myself? What is the truth? There's nothing wrong. So really what I'm saying is, show me how to see there's nothing wrong, instead of show me how to heal what's wrong. Mind COPD.
Yeah, how do you work with yourself with that?
Oh, I work in great deep guilt that I'm never going to get it. On a more realistic basis, I fall into guilt a lot. And that's what led me into guilt over this post that I've currently put up on how do I really change my mind? Because I don't know. I don't know why I haven't gotten it. But I do know that there are an awful lot of times that I get very upset with myself because I haven't gotten it. And each time I do, he reminds me, it's okay. Nothing real is happening anyway.
Like, is it talking about, like, you still have to live in it?
No, you don't.
But, well,
You don't.
or the rules that society kind of
You can be in it.
created.
You can be in it, but you're not without being of it.
Yeah.
That requires a great deal of persistence, but it is possible.
In the world, but not of the world.
Yes. You would ask any number of people, well, we could ask ourselves right here in this room, how many of you would like to experience the love of God? We're all going to say, come on, give me a break. Yes, right. Are you willing not to judge a brother for anything that he does?
I would like to. My mind would like to.
But listen to what's happening. Just to illustrate what Tom was saying a moment ago. When you say, I want the love of God, you have to say, how can I receive the love of God? And odds are the Holy Spirit's going to say, well, here, show this one that you have judged. Show him that he is loved. Show him that he deserves the love of God, so that you open your mind to receiving it as well. Because you can't do one without the other. How often we fool ourselves into thinking that we're not getting what we want. But we always do.
Isn't that really at the core of giving the world a different purpose?
Yes, it is, Tom. Yes.
As soon as we say we want the love of God, everything that we've held as an obstacle shows up.
Nearly guaranteed.
I'm reading this line where it says you undertook together to invite the Holy Spirit into your relationship. And I have someone in my life that I love very, very much who doesn't even believe in God or Holy Spirit. How do we together invite Holy Spirit?
I mean, that's one of those things that absolutely, totally confounds the ego. Because logically, there's no way. So what's the answer? You go to the God self, to the Holy Spirit, and you say, you do this. This is my intention. Please do it for me. Do that.
The Holy Spirit will immediately take that, the same as if both of us had.
It'll be done the moment it leaves, the thought leaves your mind. The thing that screws us up, that makes it all look so convoluted, is our anticipation of how things happen.
Yeah.
And so we don't see things quite like that. We think there is a cause and then there's an effect. In truth, nothing, cause and effect are never separate. Never. Because there is no such thing as time. So when you move through a thought, and that thought, you share that thought with the Holy Spirit or with someone else, it's done. When we see it done, could vary, who knows? Because we're of our belief. But that doesn't mean it's not done. When I ask for healing, and I get really sick and my body's filled with pain, and I say, God, you know, step in and help me here. In the back of my mind, I know I'm wanting Him to make the pain go away. But you see, in truth, I have no pain. That's the truth. That's what I meant by beginning every thought with a truthful premise. The truth is I have no pain. So what I ask God to help me with, to see that I have no pain.
I said, God doesn't see your pain.
No. No. But to help me see that I don't have any pain. That's what relieves the pain.
So it's the same as asking, help me see that my reality is not this body.
Yes. Yes. The Course, he tells us in the very beginning, the whole purpose of the Course is to learn to tell the difference between what's real and what's not real.
Well, what happens though to the place of God help me see what belief system I'm holding on to that's creating this?
Good, do that.
Glad you said that, Tom, about helping to see that I'm not this body.
Yeah.
Because it isn't me that's having the trouble breathing, or you. It's only the body. That's not who I am.
It's the character. It's the character in the story.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts about a statement that you made a little while ago. And that is that living in the world but not being of the world. And I remember Linda actually making a statement that the brain, the human brain, kind of acts like an antenna, receiving messages from the Holy Spirit. And I'm wondering if this concept of being in the world but not of the world would be a person in a body, but are resonating with and only with the Holy Spirit while they're in the body. Would that be a fair description of what you said?
My understanding, Raj, is that the only function the brain serves is to make the body work. That includes memory, that includes all of the stuff, but it's all related to the body. It's the mind that takes it in and feeds it into the brain, and the brain...
The cosmic, the mind, you're talking about the holy mind.
Yeah.
Well, there's only the whole mind.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking of it as the Roger mind,
No.
okay, however you're thinking of it, if it's the whole consciousness
Yeah.
or the individual self, that mind is what's taking it in and creating a story out of it, creating thought forms, so to speak.
And communicating that with the brain.
Yes. Well, yes. It's just an automatic thing
Yeah.
because the body doesn't really exist. Take away the thought of separation and the body goes away.
The Course does say someplace in it, doesn't it, that the body can be used, or the brain can be used for communication?
Yes, it says...
Wouldn't it have to receive messages?
Pardon me?
Would it not have to receive messages to do that?
What it's saying is that for the mind, what we were just talking about a moment ago, that to change the purpose, your purpose in your story or the purpose of the world, you've got to change the purpose of the mind's thinking.
Mm-hmm. To receive the messages rather than make up the story.
Yes.
So
Yes,
the
to
brain is a
alter the
transceiver,
input.
what would you say?
It's a receiver.
The brain does nothing
Yeah.
but make the body function. It is a body, it is a physical thing.
But doesn't the brain help us to process to some degree
No.
the input that we're getting?
No,
No, not at all.
no.
How do we
Not at all.
recognize that input then, and how do we adapt that to our daily activities?
How do we recognize the input? By asking.
Well, how does it come
The
into our
separate
awareness?
mind, that has a separate mind.
This is this is really a good key point here. How does it come into our mind? The mind and the brain are two totally different things. The mind, well, first of all, accept a very subtle and yet what should be obvious conclusion. The mind does not exist within the body, but the body exists within the mind. Okay? Now, if you can get that, then the rest of it, I've created my body, my body's sick because my mind feels there's something wrong with me, etc., etc. We're one in the ego mind and the Christ mind.
Right.
You can't take this thing of oneness and say, well, it exists here but not over here. It's either a fact or it isn't.
But it does say the mind is split.
But the belief in the mind is split. I know, Brian, a lot of times he uses mind, and I don't know if this was Helen or if something else was going on. But mind, and many times he'll say your mind or my mind. But it's always helpful for me to remind myself there's only one mind. And I have a belief, which I exercise within that mind, as you have a belief. We are tied together as an ego with a common belief because of an outcome. And the outcome is there's something wrong with us and we're all going to die.
So are you saying there's an ego focus of the one mind?
Yes. And that's what we refer to as the consciousness, the ego consciousness.
So when the Course states that the body can be used as a means for communication, and the body is a thought in the mind, then there's the thought that can be used as a means of communication.
Yes. Yes, that's breaking it down more appropriately. But what communicates the thought? Does the body communicate the thought?
Be the holy mind.
It's the mind that's communicating the thought. I can sit here and we can talk and talk and talk and talk about a million different subjects. But what's communicating? It's not my mouth. What's communicating is our connection in mind. That's a huge shift.
It's all going on in the mind.
Yes.
Just one part of the mind communicating with another part.
I've had that image.
How can that be? You've got two parts, that's separation.
No,
No, it looks like-
that's why you recognize it not as mind, two minds, just as two different beliefs
In one mind.
in one mind. That's the bridge the Holy Spirit serves. Because you see, Roger, even though there are two different ego beliefs operating in the same mind, those beliefs aren't really different. We like to believe they're different because of our perception of separateness.
They have a common cause.
They have a common outcome. And if the outcome, whatever the outcome is, determines the cause. So that's why he keeps telling us, see all things as being the same. Don't get fooled by the form it happens to take. I found myself again the other night watching the debates thinking about Donald Trump. Oh my God. You know how easy it is to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And how quickly my mind wants to go there.
So what do you do? What do you do when Trump is doing his thing, you're like feeling like ready to jump on the wagon? Like,
The only thing I know to do, honey, to hold a thought of love for him. Listen to what we're talking about. Listen to how this conversation has gone. And now ask yourself if you are prepared to receive the love of God. Because the love of God is totally exemplified in Donald Trump. It's my own sense of guilt. It's everything that, if I can't project it onto him, what the hell am I going to do with it? Well, but this is good. This is really good because it helps us to stop and see in our day-to-day thinking, our day-to-day lives, why? When we think we ask for something, we aren't. We aren't asking for that at all. And we come to know what we have to give up in order to have what we want. Is it possible to give up judging anyone for anything?
I think it's possible, but it's not a piece of cake.
Love the one who seems to be unlovable. That's how you love yourself.
Watch TV tonight.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Would you say it again, Tom? Would you repeat that?
Love the one who seems unlovable, because that's how you love yourself.
I think I might have taken the wrong solution. I canceled the Wall Street Journal so that I wouldn't be reading this stuff anymore. And that's not the Holy Spirit's answer, is it?
No, but if you
I knew it was.
If you decided that was the way that you wanted to go, the Holy Spirit's answer will move you with that understanding. It won't try to change your mind. It'll just say, okay, Sam, based upon that choice, then let's do this.
Because the intention.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, trying to.
But doing this might not be what we thought our intention was.
Well, that's a good point, Kat. It's like, Brother always tells us, your first question should always be, what is my question?
In Walsh's book, he said, look for I think he called it the root thought, the thought that's underneath the thought. Because whatever kind of thought you're having is not what you're really having, it's underneath there.
Yeah.
And I find that in this book a lot.
That's why it's so much simpler to just ask the Holy Spirit, rather than try to figure all that out.
We were just saying here earlier that feelings are the language of the soul, according to Walsh. So if we're getting into our feelings, I think that's a good thing.
It is, Brian, but I must add a caveat to that. Don discovered that that's the path that works best for him. It may not work best for everybody. So rather than just accept that carte blanche, go to the God self, the Holy Spirit, and say, what, should I pay more attention to this or this?
When you say, just going back to that talk about the mind, so is the Holy Spirit, in a sense, the mind?
Is the Holy Spirit the mind? Are you the mind?
I am the mind.
So what is the Holy Spirit? Is that a bigger circle?
Yeah.
We are all parts of the same thing, honey. Whether you call it Holy Spirit or God or the Son of God or Ron or Donald Trump, it's all part of the same thing.
Tom, you mentioned earlier, you used the term false premises. And it kind of seems to me that that's what the entire book is about, is the undoing of false premises.
Yes, that's true, Sam. That's totally true.
And just kind of keep holding on to those new premises as we...
And he addresses each one of those premises as we go through the book.
Yeah.
If we could take them all being the same, the book would be about that thick. All I want is to change my mind. I don't want to change myself. I'm not trying to change myself. I'm just trying to change my mind about myself.
It occurs to me that I've been trying to change my mind for about 30 years, to let go of my story of sin and separation, and accept the truth about us. I can't help but wonder, why does changing our minds seem so difficult, take so much time? After grousing about it for a couple of hours, I ask, and he answers, quote, because you think there is something real to change your mind about, unquote. For 30 years I've been studying daily, the quote, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. You take a journey without distance from a place you've never left. When Brother says this, it feels like something I'm hearing for the first time. Where have I been? I still believe we are asked to let go of something real that happened. More than a story, a dream without cause or meaning. What the Course teaches on every page, nothing has happened. As I sit with this, I realize that for 30 years, I have known exactly what it says and what it means, but to accept it literally means letting go of everything I now perceive to be true. Everything. Workbook Lesson 44 sums it up perfectly. Reaching to the light, parentheses, truth and God, within is a very natural thing to do, and it is our release from hell. But perceived through the ego's eyes, it is a loss of identity and descent into hell. Little wonder we resist the truth. It's not that changing our mind is so hard. It is accepting God's creation instead of our story that we struggle with.
So I got called for jury duty.
Well, that's good, honey, that you're allowing yourself into the experience of what really feels right for you. And that's very important to do. So you decide, truly. You decide what it is that you feel good about doing. And then you go to the conference with the judge, and you go with that. And if you have come to the conclusion that you can't, in good conscience, serve on a jury, then you just say that. You just say, I can't. And she'll say, he or she will say, why? And you say, because I don't believe in judging. One of the lovely things about what we're learning is that the world being a state of mind, it will always conform to what you feel is best for you. And if you decide that that's not appropriate for you, then you will not have to do it. And it only applies to how you feel about yourself. But if you don't adhere to your own spiritual integrity, then you're going to give the ego so many more opportunities than it now has, that it's just an unfair competition. So rest assured that you are making the world that you experience, and it will conform itself to what you decide it ought to be. And if you decide you do not feel good about being in judgment, then you go with it. That's it.
Up front, up loudly, instead of avoiding the situation.
No, you can't avoid it. That's not being in integrity with yourself.
But aren't we all pretending we're someone we're not?
We are, Brian, and that's the reason why this is so important.
Yeah.
Because that helps to get us out of that mold. That's what, when you do something like this, you are making a very bold statement that you are not a victim of the world you see. Do you understand that? Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes a part of the new world. that you are willing to see, the one that you know that you're in charge of. What we call the fear of the unknown is one of the greatest ego tools that exists, because it is the confirmation that you are not in charge. It is the confirmation you are a victim. And yet, at the same time, the silliness of the whole thing is that all we have to do is to step back and to ask the God self, what is this that I don't think is known? What is this that I'm afraid to look at? Because obviously it's not unknown, it's me. It's coming from me. So what is it? And you'll know. You'll be told. And suddenly the unknown becomes known. And the whole ego game of being a victim is over. Many of the rest of you ever felt that fear come up because you just weren't sure what was going to happen? And then the next time it happens, what will you do about it? Don't you see? That's one of the weirdest things that we could even possibly contemplate. That there is something happening that we don't know about. There is nothing ever that goes on anywhere in the universe that you are not in absolute control of. Now, I say that, but can you be in control of it if you're expecting your ego to handle it? Obviously not. Obviously not, because the ego is always going to keep it secret from you. That's the fear. I can remember one of the very first times this began to happen with me, and so I went to Brother and I kept saying, well, what is it that I'm afraid of? What is it that I'm afraid of? And the only thing that kept coming back was dying. Dying. Oh, fear of dying? Goodness, at that time I wasn't, that was 30 years ago. I'm not afraid of dying. Oh, what else could happen to you? What else are you not in charge of in the final analysis? You feel that? See, that's the one thing the ego will always hold out. That's the ultimate challenge. You're going to die. You're going to die. And what's the answer? No, I can't. That's not an option. Dying is not an option. Letting the body go, yeah, we're going to do that. But it's not dying. So remove that from the ego's arsenal, and what's left?
The fear of utter humiliation.
So what's the answer to that, Tom?
Being exposed as being not genuine to yourself.
Yes. Yeah, beautiful. That's always going to be it. That's the one thing the ego can say. See, you weren't really true. Who you are isn't really true. So, you begin to understand, Kelly. This is where your spiritual integrity comes in. Because you begin to build now a sense of self that takes that tool away from the ego's perspective. But who can be humiliated except the ego who says you are not enough? When things come up like Tom is just describing, one of the first things we have to do is to relate back to that paragraph that he was reading from today's lesson. And what does that tell us? It says that I am not afraid of someone else's humiliation. It says I'm afraid of my judgment on myself. That's the one thing I can be humiliated by. So if I hold a sense of spiritual integrity within myself about who I am, how is that possible? If If I refuse to judge myself, who is going to judge me? If I can go to my God self and say, show me how to let go of this fear that I have. Who is going to judge me? You may think that you can see what he's doing and judge him, but you can't. Not even that becomes real, because the only thing each of us are doing, as Tom just read, the only thing each of us are doing is judging ourselves based upon how we see ourselves. Not what's going on with someone else. None of us can be ego self-assured. And yet that's where we always try to go with it. But all of us can be God self-assured. So when that comes up and you're looking for self-assurance, where do you go? You go to the God self. Am I self-assured? No, but my God self knows me better than I know myself. Yes, those are interesting little tidbits, incidentally, when you watch yourself and when you watch certain thoughts like that come up. Just remind yourself, maybe it is your mind, but whose mind is it? It is God's mind. All of these little things that we do, every thought that we have throughout the day, will do one of two things. It'll either confirm your separateness or deny it.
I've been rereading The Disappearance of the Universe, and I'm getting much more comfortable with it. And a part of me is saying, should I?
Bottom line, Sam.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Well, it seemed to.
In fact, I asked Gary about that when he came to dinner one night. We had a big discussion about it, but my conclusion was that what difference does it make? This was an experience that a brother was having that he has been sharing with a lot of people who have been helped a lot by it. That's enough.
I guess so.
Why you can just say, I guess so, instead of saying, of course it's enough. You see, one of them sets you free, Sam, because there's no judgment involved.
Yeah.
And the other one holds you a prisoner, guess what? Of your own judgment. Let me ask you another question. Which is the most important thing? Truth or truth?
Truth or what?
Truth.
Only one answer there.
Go with it, Sam. Really, there is only one answer there. The definition you put on truth is the one you have to live with. And it's the one that will control your life. So don't saddle yourself with some definition of truth that can't do anything but lead you to judgment.
The problems that happen, are they really problems anyway? Or are they actually spirit moving through the problem to guide us where we need to be?
Whose idea is that?
Mine? But no, I mean, it's not mine.
No. It has to be. You just said it.
Yeah.
So whose idea is it?
It's mine. Right now, trying to figure that, well, if I was...
The point I'm making, honey, is that what we were saying was you are going to experience your belief. That's the world is going to be a mirror for that belief. So you just gave us another idea of what your belief could be. So maybe it would experience that part of your belief. But they're both your belief. You're trying to say, maybe that's somebody else's belief. And so could I experience somebody else's belief? But even when it is, you may have heard somebody say that to you yesterday. But when you said it today, it became your belief. It was your idea now. So that could show up, of course, it could show up. The ultimate would be to go to the God self and say, how do you want me to see this? Show me how to see this that would be in keeping with God's plan for me. Now we're beginning to really cook.
if we are always on the right path, that our path has been determined, or already been even, if we're always on the right path, and we really believe that, then anything going on is good. Is that?
But you just said it. You just said it in reverse order.
Yeah.
First, you say, if I always believed that I was on the right path,
Yeah.
then I would be on the right path.
I mean, it's that only if you believed it.
If you didn't believe it, there isn't any path.
Well, couldn't an ego believe it's on the right path too?
That's not a path. That's what we call an illusion. It's not that. There's quite a difference there. Because if you want to confine it to the ego's so-called path, take a look around you at the world. Take a look around you at the chaos, and nothing seems to make sense, and nothing does. And that's the whole point.
Peaceful.
Pardon me?
It is not peaceful.
It is anything but peaceful.
Well,
And that's what we call a dream. So if I look at God's plan, and I say, I do believe that God's plan is always unfolding for me, now I can step out of the way. And I can ask every time, what should I do about this? How should I see this? Tell me what to do in this circumstance. Now I've surrendered myself into that plan.
so it really gets back to connecting with the Holy Spirit, actually.
Damn, it just always does. But what are we really being asked to learn here in this opening paragraph? That unless something is originated within the thought of God, there is no cause. So if we're going to listen to what our ego says and dream about something else happening, is there really a cause? No. That's the distinction that the Course always tries to make between what's real and what's not. If the thought did not originate within the thought of God, then there is no cause. Let's try to break it down. What is it really saying here? There is no sickness in the body. A. There is no sickness in the body. What is broken? The mind. The mind is what is broken. And that's where the cause of sickness is, within the mind. So, when we're looking for healing of the body, where do we go? We go to the mind. We go to the place where mind is broken. And what do we say? Fix the body? No. We go to the mind and we say, help me to see that nothing is broken. We're not trying to fix what's broken. We're trying to understand the impossibility of something being the creation of God and still can be broken. There's quite a difference there, isn't there?
There is only perfection.
Yes, Sam, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And healing then becomes a reaffirmation of what is true. Healing doesn't change anything. It is a reaffirmation of what is true.
Go to the mind to ask for the healing for the body, but the mind's already perfect. I'm confused.
The mind is perfect. The perception of the mind is imperfect.
Which is my brain, right?
No, your brain doesn't have anything to do with it.
With my perception?
Your brain and your perception there's no connection between the two. The brain is a mechanism that makes the body function. That's it.
Okay.
It serves no other function than that. Perception is of the mind. And perception is simply a kind of dyslexia that allows you to see only what you believe is true about yourself. So it's not even about the thing that you think it's about. It's just another way to perceive yourself. That's all perception is. It applies the brokenness that it sees in itself to everything else that it sees. And we call that perception. Part of the mind that says sin is real. I think it is so vitally important for us to, I know it is for me, to continue to reinforce that sin is just not there. It isn't true. Sin is an idea that is not true. There is no sin. How many times have you seen sin today? Every time you looked at someone and tried to recognize them through their body, you said to yourself, sin is real. Separation is true. Sickness is a meaningless attempt to give effects to causelessness and make it be a cause. That's exactly what Tom was just describing. That's that little window that the ego can come back into your belief system and say, see, here's where we got you.
So it all must be real. If you believe in sickness, then you believe in the whole illusion.
What does the Course say is the beginning of this mistake?
One of the things, this is a very big mystery to most students of the Course. As an overview, let me simply say this. The Course does not spend a great deal of time on it. And the reason he says that he doesn't spend much time on it is because it isn't true. And it never happened. And so that's why he kind of dismisses it. What he refers to it as, the moment a tiny mad idea entered the mind of the Son of God, and he forgot to live. Where did it come from?
Yeah.
It came from a little thing called free will.
Free will. We'll beat our head against the wall as long as we want to, right?
When you no longer see yourself needing to have free will, you'll understand the reality of what free will is.
So because
The ego needs to have free will to choose other than God. Truly, the definition of free will change when you no longer need it to separate your will from the will of God. When you've gone past that, the whole concept of what free will is and what it means and the purpose it serves will change entirely.
To me, it's like saying I can have free will within my dream because of perception. That's my free will in the dream. There is a free will within God. My free will is in a tiny speck of a little dream of perception within this world I think I see, and others playing the game with me. And that's my idea of free will. How much of everything that is possible is outside of my little realm of perception? That's where real free will lies within God.
Just for a moment, sometime in a meditation, just ask yourself what it would feel like to allow yourself the freedom to join with every other aspect of God's creation. Your ability to recognize and do that is your free will. See how that's so totally different? But you don't get to one until you've given up the ego's use of it. I can remember, though, when someone asked Brother through me why there was so much pain and suffering in the world. You know what his answer was? What pain and suffering? The ego can best be described as that part of me that doesn't like me. And so, who's in charge of that?
Guess who? The homesteader up in my head.